Hey. Welcome everyone to this month's installment of the Intentional Success webinar series. We're going to talk about the annual business cycle. It's really about scheduling things and how it affects the ways you manage your company. As per usual, I mean, my clients are the owners of businesses, and it's always a struggle to get them to work on their business instead of in their business. So I'm going to share some things that we use, or some tools that we use to help owners make more time for working on their business, because the working in, the shows, the clients, the projects, the things that are really fun and interesting always pull them back in, and we forget to have time for the stuff that will make sustainable results for the long term. So here's one of the things that we do for it. Now, if you're new, and there's always a few new folks on here, welcome, thank you. I'm Tom Stimson. I'm a business consultant. I've been 40 years in the live events industry. I've done most of the jobs that you have on your team, and I work exclusively with owners and management teams to elevate their businesses, execute their strategy, really make more money, have less stress, live a better life, because sometimes it's really about, the vacation and not the work. So this is being recorded, as you just heard, and I always check right now to make sure I hit record, because that's my era. There's questions that you can post. You can post questions in the Q&A box. You can chat with each other in the other box. Hey, Stuart from Glasgow, Scotland. Always nice to see you here. And then what's the last thing? Oh yeah, and then the recording will get posted later today. You'll get a follow-up email at 5 o'clock US time. That's about 0 GMT, and you will it'll have the link to the replay page, which you can bookmark. It's the same all the time, and you can find today's webinar later on. All right, let's get into the fun stuff, the meat of all this. All right. Well, hang on, back up. So why am I having this webinar? I sit down with my marketing team, and we talk about blog posts, and we talk about current issues and things and what's going on. And sometimes these will also turn into webinars. And what's the right time to do the webinar? Well, I picked January for this webinar, one, because this January is usually the time we remember all the things that we meant to do in December but didn't have time for. And I know you didn't have time because you were all far too busy in September, October, November to worry about having a company meeting, doing pay reviews, doing all that end of the year stuff that you want to do. And so I'm going to show you how we spread out a lot of those things over the course of the year. One, to put them at a time that makes more sense, and two, make it much more likely that you're going to have time to do it, so that you're not doing things all at the same time, trying to cram it all in, and maybe not doing the best job you could do because there's too much going on. Now, this comes up, and I think about this because very often the noise that my clients, my coaching clients, are dealing with on any given day is noise. It's something that came up because there wasn't a better way of handling it that was taken care of in the past. So a lot of what we'll talk about today are better ways to handle things so that they don't become noise at a very inopportune time. So we make a plan so we can change it, and we're going to be planning ahead. But by planning ahead, we have something to focus on. We can work around it, and as long as we can change it when we finally have to. Another thing that's driving this particular conversation, and this is a conversation I have with my clients all the time, is that we aren't having the seasonality that we had before. I know in the US, since things picked up again last March or so, it hasn't really stopped. There haven't been those breaks. We're not, and looking at the forecast for this year, yeah, some people are seeing a little bit of a lull. Maybe right now you're having a little bit of a dry spell, but the rest of your calendar seems to be filling up pretty well. And that lack of downtime, that feast, the constant feast and not enough famine, we're finding trouble getting some things done. So I don't see a change in this cycle. I think with the advent of more effective streaming events, the changes in the supply chain, I think buyers are going to continue to be last minute, which means that they're going to continue to fill in gaps that weren't there before. So we're going to have less lulls in our annual cycle. Individual results may vary, of course. So it is still important for owners to prioritize the business functions that they have in front of them, rather than getting caught up in the false urgency of, ad hoc noise and requests. So we got to work in sometimes, but we need to make room for working on our business. So I'll go through a couple of categories. I'm going to start with HR, because the first thing is something we've all heard probably a number of times in the past 2 years at least, is, hey, I need a raise. And why? Well, because I'm working harder, my job has changed, I'm doing more things, I saw how much money we made on that streaming event, whatever it might be. I know we're charging more for labor. Why am I not getting paid? The request for I need a raise, in whatever way it comes to you, whatever way it manifests, rarely comes at the right time. It comes often when you're busy and you don't have time to focus on it, or in that rare window when things are slow, you'd rather work on something else. And it becomes a noisy request because you have one person, and if they get time and attention, then another person's going to want it. And you hit this cascading effect as it ripples through the organization. So we want this I need a raise thing to have a deflection. We want to say, hey, here's when we talk about raises. So the standard mantra that I tell my clients about is, we need to do annual pay reviews. We need to do annual performance reviews. They're not as bad as they sound. We make a bigger deal out of it than is necessary. And we need to do monthly one-on-ones. And if you will do all three of these things, it eliminates probably 50% of the noise in your business, which are employees that need attention. And then you also have the employees who are hiding from attention that need attention, right? So here's what let me walk through each of these so you can understand how they work and how they work together. So the annual pay review, you have a total compensation package, okay? You've got your base salary, you may have some prescribed bonuses that go in there, you have your benefits, you have your vacation time, okay? All of these things have dollar values, they add up. So while you may be paying somebody $60,000 a year in base salary, their total compensation package is probably up in the $90,000 range. Once you do their healthcare, you do their 3 weeks of vacation time, what other benefits that you give to them, it all adds up. And then you've got the Social Security contributions and retirement contributions. It's a big list of things. So talking about that on an annual basis is very, very helpful for people to have a better understanding of what's going on. When we do a pay review, we also talk about cost of living and the benefit cost increases, because if the cost of healthcare goes up, and it always does, the value of their benefits package actually went up. They may not see that money in their pocket, but if they had to go buy healthcare separately, here's the healthcare that they're getting now and what it's worth. So we need to make sure they're in tune with that. Cost of living increases, right now, we might feel that they need to be a lot higher than they've been in the past, but over time, over the average of multiple years, it's running 3%. The benefits are running another 3%. Some years they're more, some years they're less, but you know that you're going to spend 3 to 6% more per payroll every year for the same number of people. Performance bonuses are a great thing to do in lieu of raises. Again, a great time to do this is at that annual review. It does help deflect for the fact that I didn't raise your base salary, but here's a performance bonus. But we can increase base salaries for improvements in mastery. It's not that you're doing more things, it's that you're doing more things for us. So are you better at these things? Can I put you in more positions? Are you a bigger contributor in that way? These are sort of things that we can give performance base increases for. So put that annually. I recommend it. I'll tell you about the timing here in just a minute. An annual performance review as well. How can you improve on your mastery? How can you get to the point where you are worth more to us so that I can increase your base pay? That's a great conversation to have. We want to pay your employees more because that means that they are more valuable to us, and it's a way of retaining them, and we want to retain them if they are more valuable. Performance review, action list with deadlines. And here's what makes performance reviews work and makes them a lot less painful is the follow-up at a monthly one-on-one. And I know many of you have resisted the one-on-one meeting, but this is part of your annual business cycle. This is something that you need to embrace. And it may only be 10 minutes, but you need to have a quick conversation every month saying, My list is, not go through some review criteria, say, hey, what do you need? What are your concerns? What can I do better? What can I do better for you? Make a list of the things, save it in the same place every month, come back to it next month and say, hey, we talked last month. You said you were going to work on this. I was going to do this for you. Here's a follow-up on that. What else do you need? What are your concerns? Are you working on that annual goal target we talked about? Awesome. Great. See you next month. You can get out of these things much more quickly if you schedule them. So the monthly one-on-one gives you a lot of information so that when you sit down and have a performance review, you're not running over the entire year, right? Performance reviews don't have to be these long drawn out affairs, which is why we fear them. We think we have to spend an hour on them, and very few people want to spend an hour in a performance review. But if there's been an open dialogue and a conversation, neither of you will feel the need to spend an hour on a performance review. It's just another monthly with a little bit of aggregate information to talk about, overall your performance for this year has been an 8 out of 10. Thank you very much. On these criteria, you're a 7 out of 10. On these criteria, you're a 6, you're a 9. Go over those things. What are we going to work on? Great. We'll talk about that again next month. Putting these things on your calendar are going to be very important for reducing what I said is 50% of the noise that you have in your business. Employees that need feedback, employees that are avoiding feedback, which are creating other problems for you. So pay attention to that one. There's another HR noise. I need a job description. Okay. I've got an email sitting in my inbox somebody asking me for job descriptions. I've written a lot about this, and you can certainly search my websites for things I've written about job descriptions. I think we put way too much energy into this because we're trying to capture everything they might possibly do. What I like to see in a job description is, what are the tiers of mastery that I'm looking for, rather than here's everything I want a project manager to do, which means I can never hire a project manager because no one can do all of those things. Here's what I need an entry-level project manager to do. Here's what I need a project manager to do next. Here's what a master project manager can do. Okay. And I can have corresponding pay increases that go with the mastery and the performance mastery, right? So do a better job use a better methodology for creating job descriptions so that you can tie them back to compensation, performance, and reviews. Give people clear targets. Hey, if I need you to know how to use Vectorworks and be an expert at Vectorworks at the master level, that's a criteria. It's just a bullet point. I need you able to effectively scrub any size of order. I need you to be able to lead multiple teams. Okay. All of these things can be bullet pointed out. It doesn't have to be extremely long. We can read between the lines, but I need to do it at tiers, which will help you have multiple people with the same job title, same job description, but different levels of mastery. All right. Update those job descriptions twice a year. Put this on your calendar. Do it a month before you do your reviews. Sit down with the management team and say, hey, do we need to make changes in the job description? Yes, a master project manager needs to have an understanding of streaming platforms and how to manage crews that are doing the streaming. Okay, great. We'll add that to that list. No problem. Do it again at the end of the year before the holiday break. If you need to let people know, hey, we're expecting this from you. You need to be working on this for the coming year. Let's let them know. We'll go off for the holidays. We'll forget about it later. But we have a solution for that as well coming up here. So put a little time in, just put it on your schedule. We're going to update job descriptions twice a year. The other HR thing that comes up a lot, org charts. Who's my boss? Who am I supposed to be reporting to? So-and-so left. Who's my boss now? I don't want them to be my boss. I've been around longer than they have, or I know more than they do. A lot of noise around this stuff. And as soon as you carve out an org chart, somebody's going to be upset because they're not in charge, even though they're horrible at managing people and they don't want to manage people, but they want to see themselves on the org chart in a certain way. So reframing the conversation is helpful. And I've written pieces on this. Matter of fact, I think I did an entire webinar on this. Who's my boss is an issue of process users and process owners. So who's the owner of the process that you're using? That's your boss right now. Internal customers are your bosses. Anyone using your process is a direct report. So your org chart boss gets involved when your process boss is not happy with how you're using the process. That's basically how it all works. So guys, quit worrying about the org chart. Here's what that looks like. Here's a process chart, right? Human resources, anyone who's filling out a timesheet is working for human resources right now. Anyone delivering a review, a performance review, is working for HR. Anyone hiring or firing someone is working for HR because you're within their processes. If you're creating a purchase order, you're working for finance. Okay. If you're hiring or onboarding a new supplier, you're working for finance. If you're extending credit to a customer, you're working for finance because these are their processes. So when you're working with somebody else's process, that's who gets to tell you what to do. Okay, that's the person who says, no, you're using the process incorrectly. You need to use it like this. You need to have that conversation. Now, organizational boss charts, the org chart, traditional org chart, we have managers who are managing processes. Directors manage managers. Okay, supervisors manage people. This is what an org chart is traditionally conveying to us. So I can have a director of finance who doesn't know how to do general ledger work, but they're managing a person who does general ledger. So the finance director is managing all the managers on their team. We have probably a manager of the books. We have a payroll manager. We have an inventory manager because inventory is a finance function. Operations has a staffing manager, a warehouse manager, a logistics manager. They can have a lot more. Those people report up to a director level, which then reports up to the owner level. Anytime you remove one of these directors, those managers now report to the next person on the list, which is often the owner, which is why this comes up in my world so often, because I end up with an owner with 16 direct reports because they don't have any directors underneath them to manage departments or areas. Now, calendar, org charts, again, twice a year, right? Mid-year before reviews, review your org chart, see if you need to make any positional changes. This is going to come up in your performance review and your pay reviews. It'll affect your job descriptions. Do all of those things at once, bundle those two meetings together, knock it out, check it again. The more you do it, the shorter the meetings will become, right? So your HR timeline starts to look a little bit like this. And I'm assuming right now that your fiscal year is a January to December fiscal year. So when I say you do something mid-year, I'm talking about July, right? So in this HR timeline in June, we're going to sit down, look at the org chart, the job descriptions. In July, I'm going to present the changes to the company in the summer meeting, have an employee meeting twice a year. I'm going to do the reviews in August. In December, I'm going to update the org chart and job descriptions again. We'll probably have another company meeting before we all go off for the holidays. Like, hey, here's a couple of changes that we've made, and we're off and running. Okay. In the benefits world, typically the U.S. Thank you, Canada. You don't have to listen to this part. In the U.S., we typically have our healthcare is set up on January to December calendar, which means that we're shopping in October. We're going to update the team in November, probably train them at the end of November, beginning of December. And then in January, and this is very important, when people come back in January, whether it's a webinar or a company meeting or however it is you do it, do a quick review of HR processes because a lot of brain cells reorganize themselves over the holidays. So when people come back, they've forgotten all of that stuff. This is a very important meeting. People need that check-in to remind them, hey, here's how we're doing payroll now. Here's how you access your healthcare benefits. If you're having trouble logging in, come see me, all that kind of stuff. And they need that little reminder because it will eliminate a lot of noise. And it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, I don't have the answer for that right now, but I know we'll talk about that next week at the January meeting. Right? All of these meetings give you a chance to say, hey, Yeah, you can go ask HR right now, but I know they're going over that, in a couple of weeks. Make sense? All right, quick question. Again, questions anytime you want to put them in Q&A. Question here, what about C-level titles rather than directors? Is it the same? Does it make a difference? No, not really. I mean, it's just, C-level is a director if you don't have directors, right? So if you take C-level as a manager, if you don't have directors or managers, right? So, you can be the CEO of your organization and have 5 employees and everybody's your direct report. So no, it doesn't matter. It's just the matter if you don't have a director or manager level, that just means that it's your job to have all these direct reports. Thanks for the question. All right, so now we're into finance, right? Probably not the sexiest webinar I've ever done, but this stuff is really important and you will thank me later. Once you've implemented this and you've been through one business cycle, life becomes much, much easier. I mean, it's incredible how much easier managing a business will be if you will do these steps. All right, finance. There's some things you need to do weekly. If you have a controller, a bookkeeper, whoever it is, every week they will deliver you in a scheduled meeting a report that says, here's your operating cash on hand. Here's the amount of money you have in deposits, which is unearned revenue, which you don't want to, which it's technically cash, but you really shouldn't spend it, at least not in your brain. So we need to see that report, your receivables and your payables in an aging report so we can jump on something if we need to. Sales core forecast through this month and the next month. So right now, this week's meeting, we talk about what our sales forecast is currently for the rest of January and what our February sales forecast is. This is a quick dashboard read. You can put other stuff on your dashboard if you want to. These are the things that I think most of my clients have time for, and this is actionable. If something is awry here, they can do something about it now. We need these reports weekly. Now, monthly, okay, I need to look at last month. So in January, I'm actually looking last fiscal year because it's the beginning of quarter, but in February, I'm just looking at past month's P&L. So I'm looking at January. I'm looking at year to date, which is, well, okay, January, and I'm comparing all of that to last year and to the budget that I created. It's a quick check-in to see where we're at. As you get into the year, the numbers have more and more meaning, okay? If you put a trailing 12 months report in here, you're a rock star, because now I'm looking at an entire 12-month cycle, which captures all the ups and downs and end of year stuff. Have a few KPIs that you want to look at. There's probably 3 or 4 that matter. Can we come up with dozens? Absolutely, we can. How many do we want to look at every month? Only a few of them. We'll talk about the other ones in a minute. I also recommend looking at a couple of job costs. So, you might, my bookkeeper might come to me and say, which jobs do you want to look at? Or if you're getting job costs out of your operations system, your operations managers are going to say, which jobs do you want to look at? You say, it doesn't matter, give me a sample, but include such and such job, right? So that gives me a monthly meeting, and this can be pre-scheduled. It should be somewhere between the 10th and the 15th of every month, because you should be able to close out the month within 10 business days easily. Now, quarterly, every 4th meeting will be the quarterly meeting, or every 3rd meeting will be the quarterly meeting, which is the monthly meeting, plus you do a balance sheet update. You spend a little, give the balance sheet a little bit of love, make sure you see where your debt is going, what's being paid down, add the cash flow statement in there so you can see what cash is going in and out. Take a peek at your CapEx budget, where you're at on it, probably your expense budget too, where are you at on expenses? It's just a deeper dive into the P&L. If you've had changes in inventory, I would like to see a report. I want to know what went out. I want to know what came in, okay? If I have departments with expense budgets, I want to look at that. Why is the warehouse not spending any of their expense budget? Let's get to the bottom of that, because we should have ordered gaff tape by now. They have to spend money on something. And then look at internal process compliance issues. Okay, that's a fancy way of saying, are people filling out POs correctly? Because if not, we need to have, we need to go have a one-on-one, if you know what I mean. So that's a quarterly meeting. If I look at that quarterly, that's enough for most of that stuff. You can schedule a whole year's worth of those monthly meetings out in advance. At the end of Q3, do a pre-annual meeting. This is a separate meeting from your monthly meeting, in my opinion. I don't want to keep tacking meetings onto each other. Let's get back to work sometimes. But at the pre-annual, at the end of Q3, I want to have a meeting where I start looking at the budgeting and forecasting for the next year. So this is August, right? In August, I want to start looking at the following year and talk about budget, what changes we're going to have, when and who we're going to hire. You may think you don't know anything about the coming year by that time. You do. You know 80% of what you need to know by month 8. You'll know 90% by month 11, and you'll know the rest of it 13 months later when the year is over, just like a show, right? I'll give you the final agenda as soon as the show's over. At this meeting, I want you to take a deep dive on all expenses, justify all the expenses that you're doing, make a timeline for hiring folks, payroll changes, again, mid-year. The pay change takes place on August 15th or August 1 or July 15th, whatever it is, when you're doing your pay reviews. All of that gets talked about here, okay? You need to approve next year's budget so that you can implement the changes that are required to execute that budget by the end of November, because we don't have time in December and January is too late because we're trying to close out the prior year. This is finance stuff. Look at when your finance people are busy and work these kinds of things in when they're not quite as busy doing things. On an annual basis, okay, in the month 1, January, you're going to review year-end close. So that monthly meeting is a little bit longer. We're going to review all of the KPIs that we want to look at and see how they're doing. And maybe we want to change the key KPIs that we look at monthly if we have something that's gone a little bit askew. Some people like to review all of the KPIs on the quarterly meeting, and that's fine as well. You'll catch some things. We're going to go into the balance sheet. We're going to look at our cash flows and see what's going in and out. It's a great time to catch mistakes before we start closing things up and sending it over to our tax accountant. And then we want to review our budget for the coming year. Even though it's January and you locked in on a budget 2 months ago, but here we are, we started the year. You have a lot more information about going forward. Every quarter, we're going to look forward at our budget. Here's the beginning of a quarter, look forward at your budget. So the annual finance cycle looks kind of like this. January, you've got your finance review. February, you've got your monthly. March, you have a monthly. April, you have a quarterly review. May, monthly. June, monthly. July, you have a quarterly review. Goes on and on and on. Okay, you can plan all of this in advance, right? August, we've got the finance review. We're going to do that pre-annual stuff. Get it in your mind that this is the time of year that we do those things. So if you're doing CapEx planning, for example, okay, my CapEx budget, for next year, I'm going to start setting this year back in August, and I'm going to start talking about what it is I want to put on that wish list. Summer is a great time to do that. We've just finished your first busy season if we have a lull. If we don't, it's also when the trade shows kick off in April, May, and June, when the new equipment comes out, when we start seeing new equipment again. This is when you're going to be excited about stuff, and you'll have a better idea of what you would like to dedicate some funds to. So again, put this on your calendar so that you're not getting to the end of November going, oh my goodness, we have to spend a bunch of money on CapEx before the end of the year so I can avoid paying taxes. You should have thought about that months ago, and technically 15 months ago. All right, more noise, marketing. Marketing is an oh, by the way, right? None of us think about marketing, but the fact is marketing works on calendars. This is exactly where we need calendar stuff. And where does it become noisy? It becomes noisy when all of a sudden you see a slow month coming up and go, oh my goodness, I thought we would be busy in August and we have nothing on the books. That is a noisy statement, okay? What can we do about it? Well, if it's June or July, probably not a dang thing. It's too late. We need to look at our annual cycle, see where our soft spots may be, and start filling the top of our funnel. It's an annual thing. We have to have this going on all of the time. So if I want to have a good August And August is typically, what kind of work is in August? It might be a 3 or 6 month lead time that I need to start getting in front of customers talking about those kinds of events. If you wait till the last minute looking for fill-in work, you're only going to find bottom feeders, right? You're only going to find the price shoppers. You're not going to feel good about yourself. It may solve your current problem, but next year we're going to do it better because we're going to have an annual calendar. So let's talk a little bit what that looks like. Many of my clients have, probably 3 major seasons. They've got the season of, let's call it the graduation season, and they've got the gala season, and they got the corporate meeting season. So if your graduation season, while I realize there's probably 3 times a year that you have graduations, the big ones are always in May. So I'm going to start talking about graduation season in January so that I can get my buyers and prospects to start thinking about graduation sooner than later. I'm going to start talking about end user conferences, corporate meetings. Many of those happen to be in the summer. I may start talking about them in February. Gala fundraisings, I might start talking about those in March. Okay? Again, I'm trying to stay ahead of the demand curve, so we're having the conversations at the right time. Direct selling, much bigger in the fall. Let's start talking about it in April, right? National sales meetings happen in the spring. They're generally Q1 things. Let's start talking about those in July, right? If I want to get in deeper into university work, I'm going to talk about budgeting. I'm going to talk about graduation design. I'm going to talk about how to plan a road show for corporations at times of the years when they're thinking about next year, right? December, keys to navigating last minute requests, because everything that happens after December is going to be last minute, right? So let's help educate our clients. Let's get them thinking about us at the right time of year. And get that cycle going so they start seeing themselves also on a business cycle as it relates to you, right? Corporate events, 3 to 6 months ahead. University, 6 months ahead, okay? Especially ahead of fundraising season and graduations. You want to be on a preferred list for universities by end of the year, so start doing your campaigns, promotions, positioning for that earlier in the year. Galas and parties, fall is big, so work on introducing yourself to people who fund and plan galas in the spring, right? Pretty simple stuff when you think about it. Your calendar is your friend. Salesy stuff. All right. Sales needs some love too, all right? You probably already have a sales meeting. Sales meetings are generally designed to talk about specific accounts or salespeople, what's going on in the world. Do not take that away from them. Salespeople need to talk. They need, sales meetings aren't my favorite, but they do have value. I'm not talking about your regular weekly or monthly sales meeting, which is the salesman show. This is about sales process, right? Review your accounts receivable monthly with the sales team. They need to understand how the money follows. It may not be that they have to go call on people and get them to pay, but they need to know their client's relationship with you and money and have some perspective about that, because they can influence that in how they sell. Pricing updates. This is not an annual or biannual or mid-year thing. This is all of the time. So you can have a meeting where you have an update report on pricing. You're going to get your sub-rental and your logistics people, your buyers into that meeting to say, what are we seeing? What are the trends? What items are we selling that we're having to pay more for now? What do I need to adjust? I need my staffing person at that meeting. So update pricing every month, make it normal, okay? Change prices often, so it's not a big deal. Oh my God, we raised our prices. No, we raise our prices all the time. Every once in a while, there's a price that gets lowered, okay? Review your terms and conditions annually, okay? Fit that into one of your meetings. It could even be your mid-year planning and your end of the year planning meetings. And then processes, reteach processes in selling constantly. So if that means at every monthly sales meeting, or you have a monthly sales training meeting that you put on the books, where we have to reteach a process, you'll never get it. We've already taught them that, teach them again, right? I've told them that before. You're going to have to tell them again. That's the way it works. We're dealing with human beings. So we always have to reteach things and pick on things that we need to do better at. And they don't have to be long, drawn out things. They can be 10, 15-minute meetings. You can have different departments come in and say, hey, here's HR. They need to talk about this. We need 15 minutes of your time. Give sales that love. Operations. Wow. Operations is, well, this is the serious business, because this is, 60, 70% of all the activity in your company falls underneath operations. So what does a well-run operation look like in terms of scheduling and planning? The best operations I see do a daily stand-up meeting as a quick check-in for all the employees with their supervisor. Supervisor says, here's the projects that we're working on. Tom, are you still working on that? Alan, are you still working on that? Great. We have this truck coming in. It'll be in about 10. So when I call you to stop prepping, you'll stop prepping. We'll come check in that show. We'll QC it. We'll put it up. Then we'll go back to prepping. And that show needs to be ready by tomorrow morning. We'll load it first thing. And we found out yesterday we're having a problem with this. Here's the update. We're going to do it this way now. Any questions? 10 minutes, man, we're back to work. Daily meetings are huge. They make a huge impact for people who are working as a team, works on show sites as well. People know what's going on, when they might be available. Say, hey, I've got to go do this thing. Or, hey, I've got my performance review at 10 o'clock. I won't be available between 10 and 10:30, which is when the truck is coming in. Just wanted to let you know, not a problem. Go get your performance review. It's been scheduled for a year. Weekly. Operations manager, shop manager, the department heads, which would be like for me for staffing, logistics, procurement, subrentals. Weekly, we want to look at the shop schedule for the next 2 weeks. We want to make sure that we've made room for getting our returns back in and out. We want to take a look backwards at our overtime usage, make sure we're making good decisions on scheduling, get an update on shop projects. Are we making time and applying the right resources for that? And make sure that we leave with our shop schedule for the next 2 weeks. So every week I'm scheduling 2 weeks out. So I've got a rolling 2-week schedule. That meeting should be a regular meeting on the calendar. You can work out a lot of logistical challenges in that meeting on a weekly basis. Probably a 30-minute meeting. I often do those on Thursdays because we get more information by the end of the week. It also gives us a chance to sort out the weekend when I usually have fewer supervisors available. We want to make sure we all have the same plan in case we get that call on Sunday morning. We'll know what's going on. Now, monthly, I want to bring all of them in and their director, their supervisors in, and we're going to look at some reports. So I need my utilization reports. I want to see overtime. I want to see days off. I want to make sure that we are doing an active job of managing the team. I want missing and damaged reports on equipment. I want show prep or QC mistakes, recounted. We don't have to go into all the gory details, but we need to know that we are doing something about the mistakes that we're going to inevitably make when we're prepping a show, stuff that got left on the dock, this was mislabeled, whatever it may be. What are we doing about it? Was it a process error? Was it an individual who needs better training? What's the issue? What have we done about it? I want to look at my supply expense usage. It's okay to roll your budget over. You may not spend all of your budget, but you know that in July, you've got to have some free time and you want some budget for shelves and some other things when you have more time to focus on it. That's all good. Let's make sure we're updated on that. And then monthly operations, some mandatory training. Do something every single month, whether it's getting recertified on forklifts, how to fuel up a truck safely, how to pack a truck safely, all sorts of things that you can do. Again, a lot of this is retraining, but everybody needs this. You make time for it so it will get done. And hey, why not, have some pizza for the crew or whatever you got anyway. So meetings, a lot of meetings I described here. Put them on your calendar. When you get good at this, these meetings are short, right? Meetings don't have to be long. As a matter of fact, they shouldn't be long. The only long meeting you would ever do is a strategy meeting, which is a lot more free form. So stand-up meetings, shared updates, that's a meeting type. Nobody sits down, we stand up 10 minutes or less. Get it done in 5 minutes if you can. Daily meetings are about accelerating progress, making sure we're on track for things on a daily basis when you have a daily meeting. Again, they don't have to be long. We need to know what it is that we're working on, so we're only updating on those things. Weekly meetings are about short-term planning, 1 to 2 weeks ahead, right? 2 weeks is always better because then I can have a rolling plan. And then monthly is a deep review and then some forward-looking strategy meetings. Quarterly meetings can often have a strategy component to them once we've finished all of our deep review stuff. I like to put my strategy meetings separate from anything else because I know it takes a different part of your brain. Once you've been looking at data and talking about issues and challenges and all that kind of stuff, switching over to strategy is extremely hard. So if I'm going to do strategy with my team, I want to do it once a quarter and I want to do it separate, and I probably make more time for it. Maybe make it open-ended 2 or 3 hour meeting at the end of the day, so that we're not running for the door. All right, a lot of information. The long and the short of this, there's a lot of scheduling. I'll give you a wrap-up slide here in just a minute. If you've got some questions about this, I've already seen a question about what's the difference between a production meeting and a crewing meeting or a staffing meeting. Somebody asked about when do you rate crews. Put some questions in there for me, and I'll get to those in just a second. Next webinar. This slide has not been updated, so that is not the next webinar. The next webinar will be in February, and we're going to talk about job cost analysis. Job costing, yay. I know you're excited about this. I've updated my job cost analysis spreadsheet. We'll get that presented to you. It's going to be good stuff. You won't want to miss this, and you will have a tool when it's all over that you can use and adapt for your business so that you can do some better job costing, pre-job costing in particular for your company. Intentionalsuccess.biz. That's where everything is. A lot of stuff is on my website, but you're my inner circle. If you want to go find that article I wrote on wearing too many hats in 2011, it's on there somewhere. You can go search for it. You can find old webinars on there. Anything you're looking for is probably there, as well as some of your colleagues. Check them out. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm in business. I'm a consultant. I coach owners and teams. I advise as well. It all starts with an honest conversation. Let's talk about your goals. Schedule a call with me. Go to my website, find the Let's Talk page, schedule something. I can't wait to talk to you. If I can help you, I will explain to you how it works. If I can't help you, I'll explain to you why not. But I will give you something that's going to get you on down the road because it's just kind of how I'm wired. So if you need some help with something, I'll talk about how I can help you long term, but I'll give you some short-term help because why wouldn't I, right? So summary, make scheduling normal. It will help you deflect the false urgency that we run into all of the time, and it gives you a reliable timeline for following up on things that always need attention. You will neglect fewer things by putting this schedule together. Book these far in advance. Take what you've learned today, book through next January, all the meetings that you know you'll need. Sure, are you going to have to reschedule them? Of course you are. Big deal. Okay, we're in the rescheduling business is what we do. But you get them on the calendar, you get people used to the idea, and know that sometimes I need a meeting before the meeting. So in order to have this meeting, maybe I need another meeting. And as you're putting these meetings together, you'll discover that, oh, we can't really talk about CapEx until we've had a meeting to review what all of our sub-rentals have been and get feedback from the sales team about things that they think our clients are expecting. So we need a pre-meeting before we have the first CapEx meeting. So put these in advance. You give it the year, because by the end of the year, once you've done this, and it won't work perfectly the first year, it'll work better the next year. By the third year, and we're in this for the long run, guys, by the third year, it will be rocking. It will be doing work for you. You will wonder why you never did it sooner. So please, it's January. Let's get started. Let's have better habits. You can thank me later. All right, let's get a couple more questions in here. Let me get rid of this sharing because you don't need this. Questions going on here. Okay. What sort of company size in terms of headcount or turnover do you start implementing these processes? And 5 employees? Yeah, you're okay. 5 employees is fine. All right, it's okay. Get it people on people's calendars. Companies with 5 people don't have shorter meetings, right? Because most people are involved in the meetings. They take just as long, but it means more people are on the same page. More people have buy-in. There's no reason you can't do this now. None of this would be wasted on a 5-person company. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and I got to say your comments here. This seems today's content seemed a little bit like the Wright brothers being taught how to execute a moon landing. But nothing could be further from the truth, because this is basic. You know, even small businesses need to plan ahead and say, guys, here's when we do pay reviews, because noise is noise, right? And when you have 5 employees, having one person who's fretting about something that they think won't get addressed if they don't make some noise is just as harmful as a company with 50 employees. So absolutely go for that. Okay, it's one. Another question. So let's talk about the difference between a production meeting and a staffing meeting, because again, these are weekly meetings for most of you that we're dealing with. Staffing has become increasingly important since you're outsourcing a lot more of your show crew these days. So it's become much more important. But the priority in a staffing meeting is determining what jobs need to be filled and who's the right candidate for that job. I've written about this. You guys know that I don't think a labor coordinator chooses who to book on an order, that the company has to sit down and take a look at the orders, take a look at the list of available people and say, this person is a good fit for this job, or this person could do. And that's the information that your staffing coordinator takes and goes and tries to secure those people. Production meetings have to do with the details that project managers and operations need to sort out to make sure they're taken care of. Did you order the scissors lift? What's the substitution we're going to make for this? Oh, by the way, your projectors are coming from here. That's a production meeting. Okay. Staffing meetings look very far ahead, 3 to 6 months. Production meetings typically work 1 or 2 weeks ahead. Occasionally you need to look a little bit farther to make sure that some things are being taken care of on the bigger, more complex jobs. So those are 2 separate meetings. There's actually 2 different meeting owners in that. So trying to figure out how to crew ratings. Okay. There are products out there, there's platforms out there some of you may use. Lasso is a good example where you can keep track of feedback on individuals so that you know where to use them or who not to use them with and that sort of things. I wouldn't necessarily do a regular meeting for that. I would, that's something that needs to be an ongoing thing that is part of the staffing meeting. However, it doesn't hurt to sit down once a year and kind of review the people that you've had and say, hey, why aren't we using this person more? And it's because, well, their name's in the wrong spot on the list. They're on page 2. We need to put them on page 1 so we see their names there. That kind of stuff is great. Okay. Okay. Somebody else. So there's a lot of things that you guys are already doing regularly, which is great. And I will reinforce some of that. One of them is the holiday party. A lot of holiday parties got canceled this year because many of you were unexpectedly busy in December. And that's a reactive decision. Put the holiday party on your calendar now for next December. Budget, accrue money for it. Set money aside all year long for that party. And plan on having a good time. And then if you have a job that pops up in December, do everything humanly possible to not reschedule the party, even if it means hiring an entirely freelance crew to go run that job. You will be fine, right? It'll be okay. Make your team, make that holiday party a priority. Your team will appreciate it. Their spouses who are going to attend will appreciate having that planning. The rest of the world doesn't live in that, the crazy scheduling thing that we do. They have lives, children have to go to grandparents or hire babysitters. Don't mess all that up. stick to the plan on something like a holiday party. It makes a huge difference for the employees when you can do that, when you'll make that kind of commitment. All right. All right, not seeing it. So thank you for all the other comments about this. We're going to wrap up a little early today because it's pretty straightforward stuff. Use your scheduling tool, get your management team together and start working on some of this. Show them how it works for them. Don't forget to share this with them if they need to watch it as well, if they weren't here today because they're busy doing other stuff. So thank you guys as always for being with me. We will see you next month talking about job costs, which will be way, way, way exciting. And I'm looking forward to that, and have a great new year. See you soon.